Frank Bonada here for LowKick MMA. With me today is Cage Warriors featherweight Harry Hardwick, set to make his return to the cage against Shoaib Yousaf in March. Harry, thank you for your time today, and how are things today?
Don't mention it. Thank you for having me on. And things are good. Pretty, just pretty chill morning today. Got wrestling later, which is usually like one of the harder ones in the week. So yeah, things are all fan-dabby-dozy.
Beautiful. Getting straight into it. We've got the news of the Yusuf fight. Um, what was your reaction to being offered that fight? Because following the Aimable win, there really was a sort of strong argument to be made that you deserved a title shot.
It was I expected something that wasn't the title fight,
Right.
to be fair. Just the way things materialized. Because for a while, I think my birthday was the end of September, and my girlfriend had bought me a trip to see the Northern Lights in Sweden at the end of March. Yeah, I should know when I'm going.
Hmm.
And then I was kind of like, all right, well, if I can get a title fight before then, that'll be sound. But then just a few little factors happened. One, I haven't got a clue what Paul Hughes is actually doing.
Hmm.
Like genuinely, I don't know. And two, I feel like if he is doing something, it'll be Dublin. And if I had like a guarantee that was what was going on, I'd probably just be like, try and cancel the holiday and all that kind of stuff, or try and reschedule the Northern Lights. But I had no guarantee, and I'm like, I'm not sitting out while I'm healthy.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? I was just like, all right, well, fuck it, it's my own stuff. It's my own fault, I guess. It's not my, but like I was just like, well, fuck it, I'll just fight whoever. Like I don't care. I'll put my number one contender status on the line. Like I just want to fight people.
Mm.
Like last year wasn't active enough. I only had two fights last year. That's not enough. Want three, ideally four. This year if I can. And I think if I was to start back end of April, near near May, it'd be a bit of a struggle to fit. Maybe not three, but a bit of a struggle to fit four in. Whereas get out of the gates early, beat Shoaib, I don't know how it's pronounced
Yeah.
in March. Um, Maybe get two in the summer, one towards the end of the year. That's what I want.
Mm. Yeah, the only weird thing I find is that on that March card, it's already been confirmed that Jordan Vucenic is fighting on that card. Also, Charriere. Now, I guess considering that you're booked now, it's probably likely that they're going to fight together. But are either of those sort of fights that you wanted to sort of push for?
Just like give me a name, and they gave me
Yeah,
a name. I may or may not be able to tell you that they are not fighting each other.
really.
Um, just
Yeah, through the grapevine.
through the grapevine. I heard it through the grapevine. Um, so yeah, like I don't know,
Interesting.
just fighting whoever,
Hmm.
fighting dangerous guy. Where if you look at it on paper, I'm the one who's got everything to lose here, but I don't care. Like I want to compete.
Hmm. Yeah, no, fair enough. Um, all right, let's talk completely like theoretically, right? If you pick up, say, an incredible highlight win over Yusuf, and the Cage Warriors and the UFC come to you and they say, right, UFC contract, it's on the line, you can take it, maybe it's short notice or something, or Cage Warriors are saying, okay, straight shot the title, um, against maybe Vucenic, Charriere, whoever. Which you taking?
Probably the UFC offer.
Yeah,
I live in my mum and dad's loft. I need money.
fair enough.
My
Yeah, well,
girlfriend lives 3.5 hours away. Petrol's expensive. Like
yeah.
I need I need that money. And also the way I fight, and I think you agree with the way the way George fights as well. We fight in a way where we'd get bonuses.
Mm.
So yeah, it would be the UFC thing. Like we've got a Cage Warriors belt anyway. I mean, it's George's. It's not mine, but It's in an M&S bag under the sofa.
Beautiful. Um, do you reckon it's at all possible that sort of timelines work out? That obviously I don't know what's happening with George because maybe UFC March, maybe not, who knows? That you end up somehow making your UFC debuts on the same card, maybe like if there's a Paris card later in the year or something. Do you reckon that's possible at all?
That would be very cool.
Hmm.
Um, that would definitely be a lot of fun. Um, I can't really like.
Yeah.
I don't know if that'll happen. You can't plan for anything in this sport.
Hmm.
Pardon. Like I think making plans can most of the times will backfire on you
Hmm.
in MMA, which is why I've been more just like I'm not waiting and planning or scheming anything. If there's a fight of it, like just, boom, I want to fight. I want to
Yeah.
fight. Um, that would be very cool though. If that does end up happening, who knows? Um, one thing that needs to happen is like I'm putting this out there now. There will be a Fuck It Friday episode where it'll be a Palmo and me and Joel will be on it. I'm
Yeah,
saying that now.
that goes viral. The only reason I asked about or the only reason it came to mind about the brothers on the same card is because this weekend we've got the two Brazilian lads both fighting on the same card, the Bonfim brothers, I think. So it just sort of was in my head. Um, right, we'll stay in the realm of theoretical talk right now, but pick a UFC debut opponent, like the perfect opponent you could have. Who would that be if you were given anyone on the not anyone on the roster, obviously, but like non-ranked sort of debutant fighters that's realistic.
Uh, I mean, they'd all be easier than the people I'm fighting now, other than like the top four.
Really? Do you think so?
Cage Warriors featherweight divisions,
Stacked.
like it's very stacked, and there's a like there was a featherweight fight in the prelims of the UFC at the weekend. I forgot the names, but it was fucking dreadful. Like neither of those guys would have won a round against like the top five in Cage Warriors featherweight division.
Yeah.
Um, just yeah, but it's easier to get into the UFC if you're American.
Mm-hmm. Short
So there's
notice.
like yeah, there's these substandard people over there fighting each other in these terrible fights on the prelims, whereas the UFC should just be looking at Cage Warriors more. I know they don't do as many events in the UK and Europe, and I know they're probably looking to do more events in the UK and Europe and stuff. It's becoming more of a regular thing, but there are a bunch of Cage Warriors guys who I think I wholeheartedly think a UFC standard and just deserves to be in the UFC. But as far as first opponent, Darren Elkins.
Love that. Absolutely love that. Brilliant. Yeah. Um, okay, back to the realms of what is right in front of you. Yousaf, just looking at him on paper, what you've seen so far, what do you make of him as an opponent, and how do you see the fight between the two of you playing out?
He seems tough. Seems to be very good at the fundamentals in a lot of areas. I would say the only thing that really jumps off the page is his clinch. Like seems like he's a decent kicker. Boxing's all right. Wrestling's there. Um, just good all around. But his clinch and his sweeps in the clinch are really good. I think he'll be a tough one to get out of there, but that tends to just be whoever I'm given. I've given fucking many tough fighters to finish. I've had a run of tough competition in Cage Warriors, and I feel like that'll continue until I get to the UFC. To be fair,
Yeah,
um, but yeah, just I feel like I can definitely outstrike him. Just got to be wary of certain things, but I can outstrike him. My footwork's better than his. He might do more footwork. Mine's better. Um, and I know for a fact my endurance is better than his.
fair enough. One of the things I wanted to ask about, like over the course of, I think maybe especially your Cage Warriors career, you've sort of picked up this reputation as a fighter who's just really willing to bite down and almost like outdog his opponents. I remember Edith saying like the post fight interview, I think after Aimable, that maybe your nickname should actually be changed from Houdini to the dog. Is that something that you embrace wholeheartedly, or is it something that maybe you're actually trying to move away from and maybe like because things I don't want to say that become more technical because a lot of what you're doing is still technical, but it also descends into like a dog fight.
Yeah, I mean I guess there's the old Matt Brown adage of technical brawler, but
Yeah,
I tend to not even like. There's not like a brawl going on a lot of the time. There's just there tend to just be fights that are a really high pace where
yeah.
there's lots of openings on both sides, I guess.
Mm.
Which I'm working to shore up the openings on my own side and not creating them as often, because I've been hit fucking hard. Uh, but yeah, like it's just a part of me. I've always got that to rely on. I've always got that there, but I would like cleaner performances. But
Mm.
it is just hard with the level of competition I've been fighting. Like I had
Yeah.
John and Doy, just amazing fighter. Conmon Death, the single most awkward fighter ever.
Mm.
Federico Pasquale, amazing fighter that we knew not much about at all, with like really, really good straight punching, and then Aimable. Like I've had a ridiculous run of catering, and now I've got Shoaib Yousaf next, so I'm like, all right, I may have to rely on that, but I'm not banking on it. I'm not trying
Mm.
to go into fights and have that happen. I want clean performances, but it's just I think it's just part of like the level of competition I've been fighting, mistakes on my part, and then it happens. But someone actually suggested my nickname should be Hard Work, Harry Hardwick. But that's more just because of how difficult and annoying I am in person. So,
How did the Houdini nickname come out in the first place?
so after my second pro fight with Robbie Fallon, I spent the entire first round of that like in like a DAS, an omoplata, or he went for an armbar, or he went for a necktie, he tried to go rear naked, armbars, like just all this kind of stuff. Like I got 10-8, jiu-jitsu black belt, and like
Mm.
very physical, like used lots of his strength, like gassed himself out in a round, 10-8ing me with submission attempts that I managed to just sort of worm my way out of it. Like I was like, oh, how do you get out of most of that stuff? And then I knock him out within 17 seconds at the start of the second round. And then on the way back to the hotel, Johnny Hull suggested Houdini as a nickname because Harry Houdini, just it's a escape artist thing. And then my next fight I get submitted, but but
There's always going to
yeah,
be.
it alliterates. I'm not as keen on it, to be fair. I think it is a little bit goofy, but and also it might be a bad omen. It might mean I get killed with a body shot at some point, like the OG Houdini.
Oh yeah.
So like I would rather not that happen. Um, so I'm not mega keen on the nickname, but that's the origin of it.
Got you. Um, going back to your most recent performance, how do you rate the win over Aimable? I guess compared to the entirety of your pro career.
It was good. I feel like in a lot of ways it was my best performance to date, against arguably my toughest competition. Like I mean, I've had a lot of tough fights, but
Mm.
he's definitely up there. There were the mistakes tended to be where I let him off the hook or where I let him get back into the fight,
Mm.
which are not bad mistakes to have. It's not like I messed up and got taken down and ended up in mount or got dropped or my like lost a huge portion of the round because I was struggling to deal with something. The mistakes were I was letting him off the hook, so I was like beating him to a pulp, and then I could have done a bit more to frame on him. I could have done a bit more to not let him onto my hips. Um, when I had the body triangle, there was a bit where I probably had the rear naked locked in, but I had it on a palm to palm grip. and I thought this is taking a bit of energy, and like you got to kind of trust your in-fight senses for this kind of thing. But I thought I don't want to burn my arm out. I'll try and change to the standard, the Mataleon grip or whatever it is. And then as I changed, that's when he grabbed my hand, and that kind of let him off the hook there. So it was a good performance. And then the third round, I got a little bit sloppy just because I was like, well, I've thrown the kitchen sink at him. What else can I do? So I started like trying just other things just to try and break through. I was like stepping back a bit more and letting him in a little bit more. And that's when he managed to cut my eye and all that kind of stuff. And I was like, oh, well, that was stupid. And then obviously I shot that terrible takedown in the last 20 seconds. But other than that, I would say it's my best performance today. I'm just generally very negative about myself. I'm not like you see some fighters or some people that are almost like, like a Donald Trump or an Andrew Tate, where they will not say a bad word about themselves. It's like some practiced bro psychology trick where they're like, oh, this was good, like this constant positive affirmation about everything, every single thing they do and every characteristic about themselves. Whereas no, I'm generally very negative about myself, but I'm British. That's what we do.
Yeah, I was gonna say, it's definitely a British versus an American thing. But yeah, I mean, from my perspective, I remember watching that fight and just being like, this is the best that Harry Hardwick has ever looked at. I thought it was a really impressive performance against a very high level opponent. One of the reasons I asked earlier about potentially next going to the UFC or carrying on with Cage Warriors. Would you like to get some sort of 5-round fights in before? Because like you've mentioned your cardio and especially in the fight against like maybe Aimable. Do you reckon that's a fight that you probably are going on to go and finish later on in the rounds if there are 2 extra rounds? Is it, do you want 5 rounds before you make the step up at all?
Yes and no. So I feel like if I'd had an extra 2 rounds against Pasquale, I'd have finished him. Wouldn't have been a draw. If I'd had extra 2 rounds against Aimable, I'd have almost certainly finished him because most of his face was falling off by the end of that fight.
Yeah.
But fighting's tiring and it's really hard work, and I don't know if I can be bothered.
Yeah, fair enough. That's one of the more real responses I've had to that sort of question. Yeah, fair enough, completely. I spoke to George about a month ago, I think, and I sort of asked him, or we got into the topic of how he got into MMA in the first place, and he said Muay Thai was sort of the beginning, but always with the intention of just using it just to get a base and then going into MMA. Was that your sort of route into the sport, or did you follow a different path?
Yeah, it was pretty much exactly the same. I didn't have the exact same motivations as George. Like George literally realized he does nothing but play on the PS3 all day. Like gets in from school, plays on the PS3 and does nothing.
Yeah.
Pardon, sorry about that. I don't even know where that came from. I'm not drinking. It's very random. But with me, I was dead set on joining the RAF for a lot of my early teenage years. Now I was in the cadets as well. But then I decided to sort of tag along with George when he was going to Muay Thai, and then my friend did like some kickboxing, like the shiny pants, no low kicks kickboxing. And I just tagged along to a session with him. And I remember a lass who I went to school with who was friends with us. Like when I mentioned I was going to kickboxing, she literally laughed like in my face because it was just like nerdy and timid. You know what I mean? Like just fighting just didn't seem like something I'd be about. But it has ended up being almost everything I'm about, to the point where I don't really go out now because it's crap. But like if I end up going out in the town on a night, I just get loads of people like talking at me at like this distance just about fighting, and I'm like, I just want to drink some things. But yeah, it was that kind of thing. And then we were just at the Muay Thai gym we were at. We had Kin Prayantawang, like a 250 fight Muay Thai veteran who was this amazing coach and amazing teacher. And we were this is great. We've got him. We want to not have him. And then when he went to Thailand, there was Stephen Longy was our coach, and then he left that gym to teach at Middlesbrough Fight Academy, and we just followed him, and then that's been the MMA gym we've been at since.
Nice. What was the what was the eventual switch from Muay Thai to full-time MMA like? I mean, I remember I did about 8 years of karate before switching to train MMA, and I came in for the first day, and it was one of the worst beatings I've had in my life. Just guys who actually have fully rounded skill sets just piecing me apart.
See, the very first couple of days when we were just doing jiu-jitsu, I sort of knew the shapes of submissions and knew what submission, like I knew what an armbar was, and I knew what a triangle was, and I knew what like a guillotine and a rear naked was. And I was going with other sort of big beginner to, like very beginner level people.
Yeah.
And I was like chaining triangle or arm bars on people on like my first session and stuff. Just thinking, oh God, I'm amazing at this. Like, God, in a year or two's time, I'm going to be fucking unbelievable. And then I started rolling with the better people, and then I started doing MMA rounds with the people who knew how to wrestle, and then I quickly had those delusions shattered. And then wrestling just took ages for me to at least offensively get comfortable with, because especially at the time, I was like maybe walking around at featherweight, and, like a skinny featherweight like that. I was the smallest guy in the wrestling practice, and the wrestling class used to not be popular, but like it's popular at our gym now. Well, back in, for whatever reason, back in the day, people would say, "Oh, wrestling's hard. I'm not doing it." But there was like me, George, who was bigger and sort of took to it a bit more because I think he was more the same size as the other people. There was like Mansoor. There was just like me and just bigger, more experienced wrestlers, and I just never completed a takedown on any of them for ages. So that took a while to get good at. Like, I think wrestling is just one of the main things that it's one of the hardest skills to acquire, really.
No, I couldn't agree more. I still haven't got any wrestling in my arsenal. Looking at the very, very top of your division, not even in cage fighting in the UFC, Volkanovski right now, he's going on and he's fighting Islam Makhachev in Perth. How do you see that fight playing out from a sort of analytical standpoint?
So things that go in Volk's favor in this fight is that Volk is very disciplined and sticks to a game plan very well.
Yep.
Can fight well, generally tends to fight well on the back foot. And he has really, really good endurance. And, he's got really good endurance. And he's from, he does a lot of his work at City Kickboxing, which is a very good anti-wrestler gym.
Yep.
Things that don't really go in his favor is the obvious, that he is considerably smaller than Makhachev. And then just we haven't really seen what Volkanovski's like against the wrestler, really. Like, the best wrestler he's fought, or like the only really great wrestler he's fought, has been Chad Mendes in Chad Mendes' sort of retirement fight, where Chad Mendes kind of had his foot out the door a little bit. And Mendes still managed to get Volkanovski down. He didn't really hold him down much, but he got him down, and he managed to progress through some controlling positions. So that there is that. I do feel like this is probably Makhachev's fight. However, if Volkanovski sticks to game plans very well. If Volkanovski wins, it'll be 5 rounds of him, outside calf kicking and moving away and that kind of thing. Whereas Makhachev winning would probably end up getting quite ugly. Although saying that, Makhachev has never really been the big ground and pounder that Khabib was. He's just a very kind of similar to Gordon Ryan in a few ways. Just a very lots of leg control, lots of that half guard and that progressing, being willing to give up a step, but like getting people stuck in defensive cycles as you're going through offensive cycles. He chains very well. Like, threatens the Kimura. You'll wrench your arm off if he gets the Kimura. If not, you turn. He goes quarter mount. Quarter mount doesn't score in jiu-jitsu, but it's MMA, so who cares? So he just starts moving up and he hits, and then like you start turning, you isolate the arms. It's all this like getting people in a defensive cycle. So it'll be interesting to see if Volkanovski can break that defensive cycle, or if ideally he can avoid getting put in it entirely. But it's going to be a struggle. It's a real uphill struggle for Volkanovski.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, well, that's pretty much all I've got for you today, Harry. Well, actually, first, any update on George's next fight at all? Do we know? Does it look like he's UFC bound, or is it more like leaning towards the cage rider side?
I don't know how much I'm allowed to say. It's currently a dynamic situation, but one thing is looking more likely than considerably more likely than, actually, no. It's probably Cage Warriors.
All right. Yeah. I just wondered because obviously Mike Figlak fell out of his fight with Chris Duncan, so there was always a chance that I was there. Fair enough.
Yeah, but the thing is with UFC situations like that, with this much notice, is they'll try and use a rostered guy first, almost 100% of the time.
Yeah.
And then with like 8 weeks, you're gonna get a guy who's already on the UFC roster.
Yeah.
If it was much shorter notice, we'd maybe be like this kind of thing. But it is what it is.
Fair enough. Well, I mean, it does seem inevitable that both of you end up fighting on top. Oh, all right. One more question, actually. With the whole, Ngannou leaving the UFC, PFL's rising up, Bellator's. Well, you've been at Bellator already. And even like what One are doing right now with the whole, mixing the martial arts, 4 ounce Muay Thai and all that. Is there any interest? Because we've sort of only spoken about the UFC so far. Any interest in potentially PFL? I guess return to Bellator, One, or any other like next step other than the UFC?
So I would never say never, but
Yeah.
returning to Bellator is almost certainly not going to happen. I don't think. One championship. Again, that'll as much as I find the striking in one championship really cool.
Yeah.
Again, probably never going to happen. I think the UFC's the big fish, and the first UFC fighters from Middlesbrough need to be me and George.
Yeah.
Like that's just what it's got to be.
Absolutely. Yeah, that would be incredible. All right. Well, thank you very much for your time today, Harry. I do really appreciate it. If there are any sort of sponsors, shout outs, anything like that you'd like to give, the floor is yours.
Well, obviously got to shout out Middlesbrough Fight Academy, Newcastle Fight Centre in Type of Jiu-Jitsu, and Unit 29. Those are the regular training places. Massive shout out to Lou McCarthy and JMac Scaffolding, or JMac Group now, because you've got like safety systems and all sorts of stuff going on. But like that, the JMac logo on the shorts, like if without them, without Lou McCarthy's support, the Hardwick brothers would not be a thing in the capacity that we're in now. Like we literally wouldn't be able to do what we do without his support. Like I can't begin to express how grateful I am for that. Well, how grateful me and George are for Lou McCarthy. And there's obviously the other ones like who, again, these are all like Teesside based companies, all of them. Well, Teesside and Middlesbrough based companies, all of these like smaller companies. Canopy North Limited, I think it's just called Waste Clearance Services, Mobines. Imaginative company name, but they do a good job of getting rid of your waste, and it's cheaper than a skip. Got Aaron Flanagan from Bespoke Financial. I'm going to forget someone at some point. I know I am. I don't have any fight shots around me anyway at the minute. Market Me. Unfortunately, Palmo's in the post is no more. That is gutting, but Mark Mullally, one of the guys who's running it, decided to go to Thailand to finish his business degree, where the weather's much nicer and living isn't as expensive. And then obviously Rev Gear, like or kit sponsor, do amazing kit. It's good to have, some people get a kit sponsor and they get some pretty shitty gear that they cannot actually wear to training. Whereas we've got a kit sponsor and I use that stuff every single day.
Beautiful. Well, best of luck in the upcoming fight. Once again, thank you for your time, Harry.
No worries. Thank you for your time. Thanks for having me on.
Brilliant.
I don't know why I said thank you for your time. That makes no sense in that context. Have some social awkwardness. You'd have to seep out at some point.
Make sure to subscribe to the LowKickMMA YouTube channel for all the latest news, event previews, and interviews with some of the biggest stars in MMA.